So, hi everybody and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 5 tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 104 and in this video we are talking again about the switching characters, but I messed up with the widgets and I think it's a good opportunity to explain how to make the widgets a little bit more properly. They're not like I did. And let me show what I did and then we see what I mean I messed up. So first of all, you probably know I created here this few widgets, right? Standard way, we create a widget like all time. We go here, go to our UI folder, character HUD, right click, blueprint, user interface, and a widget, and then we create our user widget most times, right? This is our standard way. Just what I did, and then I created here these widgets. That's so far fine. That was perfect. There is nothing else wrong. But let's watch what I created now in this widget. And let's check out these items which I put in. So first of all, I have here a life bar. Okay, a progress bar, that's fine. And then I have here gold collect, a kill streak, and some buttons for skill buttons, attack buttons, and switch later character. So the problem here is when we go to the coding side. So here the widget, okay, this is style. You can style it better. That's not a problem. You can change all this kind of styles. That's also a problem, but not the real problem here. What I'm talking about how we use this elements here. For example, we have here this progress bar, which is our life, and this life is we know life is very important because cheaters, yes, try to manipulate games with, like, they make them unstoppable or undead. You can't kill them because they change here the value, so you can't kill them, and that means this value is very important. Or they try to cheat here with the gold value. For example, hey, I give me 1,000 or 1 million gold at start and I'm rich, something like that, right? So what I want to point out is, you see we have here some important yes, stats which you want not that cheaters should change to cheat in the game. And in single player, you can't avoid that. So that's the honest story, where if you have, for example, a single player, which means everybody has the source code on their machine, you can't avoid cheating. That's fact. You can cheat there easy and so on. But the point is, we think a little bit about more on multiplayer here. And even if you are not making a multiplayer, we try to implement all from start, like if we would make a multiplayer. That means we have to bring these values, this bad coded values, which I have bad coded here, to a safe place. And this widget blueprint, where I have this reference from the first person character, for example, I said, hey, this progress bar is here, reference from my third person character, for my infinitive warrior, and there I have the life setting. This is actually not a safe place. So what is a safe place here in multiplayer? I mentioned this several times, but here again, and a little bit more important, oops, sorry. So here more important is we have here a game mode. And the game mode is so designed that this game mode will run all time here on the right side, here on bottom. This game mode will all time run on the server. Server means here, when we start a multiplayer game, for example, the server will have a game mode, but the clients will not have a game mode. Let me show you what I mean with that. I go here on top, I go here to the section number of players. Now I change the single player to, let's say, 2 players, and I change here the net mode. We have here listen or client. Let's go here play as client. Now, one is the server and one will be the client. Let me start this. And now you can see here I have a little window and here I have a big window. And the little window here on top, it says client 2. And the big window, it is actually our not client 1. It says client 1, but it is also at the same time the server, because this one is special. This is a client server model, which means 1 is the server and you can play it, and the other is just the client. So what I want to point out is this client here in the middle, this little one, has no game mode. So on the right side we see this game mode. This game mode, this gameplay, will only run here on the top. Let's see if I can see this actually. I don't know if I can show this. Let's see if I can. No, not really. Okay, not here at least. But important to note is this one will pair definition has no game mode. So you have keep this in mind. Only the server will have this game mode here. The client will just follow what the server sends to this client here. So this player in the middle, he will have no game mode. So with that said, and then my arrows here, this one I solve later. And with that said, we have to think now how we can use that properly, which means, hey, I want not let other people cheat. That means I have just to bring all my code to the game, to the server. So which means all this values here, for example, the life bar, the gold, and something like that, which is important, you will have to implement at least here in the game mode. So they are saying this also in the documentation. If you implement this here in game mode, these values will be run only on the server. Perhaps there are other classes who are run also only on the server, or perhaps it is even possible that you can create a class yourself and specify it so that it runs only on the server, especially with C++. With blueprints, probably possible too. I have never done it because I would just use the game mode, but it's possible, and then you have just classes who run on the server specific, which means the clients are not cold. We as a beginner, we will use just the game mode, because the game mode, we know it will run on the server, which means all these values we are going to transfer now to the server. And the question is now how we are doing this, because right now what I did is just what we did in the past was we just throw in our elements. For example, here the progress bar, here something like that. I throw in, I created this one, I put this one anywhere here, and then I went to the right side to the details panel, and then I create a binding, or we switched here to the coding section. Here on top I go from designer to graph, and then we programmed here a lot of stuff. And actually there's a lot of stuff here in the widget blueprint is wrong. And the reason, not necessarily wrong, but in general wrong. What do I mean with that is, like I said before, there are values who should not be here. And then I want to show you some ways how to solve this. And yes, the first way is just bring all this code to the server. So what I mean with that, here's our server. This is my gameplay server here. And then I open this one up, and yes, and now I have to bring them here anyhow. And the question is, wait a minute, how I'm bringing now all these values there, right? So how I can bring all these values there. So one way is, especially there are different kind of ways, but one way is, for example, this progress bar is special a little bit. Let me explain this one here. The progress bar, you know, when we create it, we go to the right side, we go down, and for example, we want change this, bind this percentage. That was our life here. Here on top we made here a binding, right? And now I want make here also a binding, and you have your options: create binding, or you can use a reference like I did. For example, I did it with the Infinitive Warrior, my player character, and then I use just the values. And this is probably one easy way, and the best way, I think, is you just make a binding and create all the variables here on the server. So you make just, here is already a server binding as gameplay. This is here a reference to my gameplay to the server, but I have not the variable here available anyhow. And that's a problem. So we will create this one if it's possible on the server, right? So we create this, and then if we have this, and then we call this from there. I'm not sure why it's not showing all the other variables here. A little bit strange, but perhaps it's not possible to bind this, because normally it should show now these variables here. Progress life bar, for example, it is not showing by default. That's a little bit strange. Perhaps there are some settings which is not allowed. I'm not sure about this one. But normally I would make this one. So I would create here this binding, then the server, and then we normally like this other one. The Infinitive Warrior is working, but this one is not working. Okay, anyway, you get the idea. We have to transfer this settings anyhow to the server. This is one thing. The next thing is, that was with the binding. If this reference is not working, we can still create a binding and then make a reference. Let me show you this one directly. And then we make here a server call with this function here. So we make here a reference to the server. I think I have here anywhere a reference to the server. This one, we get just the reference. This is a server reference, my gameplay here. And then I just call from here get current life, for example. That I have here progress bar life, for example, this one. I can call this one progress life here, get progress bar life, and then this one here, this binding here now is from the server, and which means this value runs on the server. It is all time more safe, let's say it this way. If it's safe, it's not a question. So, and if you have, let's go back, and you see now I have a binding to the server, but I would rather use the other way with the gameplay. I'm not sure why this is not popping up here. Perhaps I have to remake this one. But with create binding, it's working also. So let's continue a little bit and clean up this mess, what I did here. And yeah, let's continue. So the next thing is when we go here to my graph and to the event graph, and you see I put here a lot of code in the widget blueprint. Actually, that's also a bad idea. Why? Because the widget blueprint, yes, you can make their logic, definitely, but most time, like I said, there are many things you want not run on a widget blueprint. Most time you want just put on this visuals here, and then perhaps some actions, React actions perhaps, mostly, and then that's it. So what I want to point out is, for example, here, this on click, this is a skill, or this is not a skill, this is just a just correct the switch later. But here on top anywhere I have skill, for example. Here I can use a skill. Yes, I click again and then I use the skill here, the whole thing here, anything what we did in our last videos anywhere. Or here I click and then I activate my attack button or something like that. And here the switch character, the same thing. This one should not run here on the widget blueprint. And we can solve this very easy. What you can do is, if you have something like that, what I did is just copy this one here, just Control C, Control Control C for copy, and then you go to the game mode, Control V, paste it in, and then you can make here a custom event and call it. Let me show you what I mean. But we have probably changed some references like all time. Control C, I copy this one, I go here, Control V. Now I paste the whole code here, and then I need here a start point. And here we make just a function. You can use a function, or you can just use a custom event. Function has one disadvantage. It has no timelines. I mean, you can't use timers like delays and so on. That's why I prefer a little bit on this case is custom events. And let's call this one here, right here, custom event, right? Add a custom event, and let's say, what was this one here? This one here was on click button skill 1. Okay, let's make here also something like that, on click button skill 1. Now I have this custom event here. I call this, I compile. I will probably get some errors here. Not interesting, because here I have normally, it could happen that I have here many reference problem, because you see this one is asking for the infinity Fourier character, and if you have here not a reference, but I have here probably one, that's why it's not complaining. Yes, I have here already one. Then you would have create all those references afterwards. So this is one thing. And one more step, we have go back, and then we have here, instead of calling this one here, we can now just call the server again with the reference. We call all time the server with a reference. So I get here my server reference. So okay, this is again my gameplay server. I get it. And now I call with this one. This is the reference here, this custom event here, right? So this what I clicked here, on click button skill 1. All right. On click button skill 1. I created this one, and now you see this whole thing here is now on the server, the whole thing. And you have to do this probably with the other things here as well later, and all with your code which you want to run on the server. Of course, there are some codes probably you want not run on the server, but most codes you will run on the server. For example, spawning a mid, perhaps spawning a character, definitely on server. Process runs anyway on the server. It's here the server the symbol, and something like that. So I think you get the idea, right? You can make here a custom event or a function, and then you call all time with this reference the server, and all time you create here a custom event or a function. A function is possible too, depends what you like more, and or which has more benefits. So read the documentation which says which is better. So with that said, you can see with this approach, when we put all in the server, we have one more advantage. And what is that actually? The advantage is now that all are centralized, or let's say all on one point. We need mostly only one reference here. For example, you see this life bar here, right? I have now here many life bar for reference for the warrior, for I don't know, for this second char, my first person character, my third person character, and something like that. And these variables here, all this one are now on the server, which means if I have one reference for the server, I have access to all the values now. I have just put all the values here, and yeah, then they will run as well here on the server. There is one more thing I have to mention, but this is also for later, for optimization. Of course, you have later check if all can run on the server, because there are some things you should not run on the server. For example, play animation will never run on the server or something like that. And there are things which, so what I want to point out is there are some things which will definitely not run on the server, but important is that when you have important values, for example, like I said, life, as character life is important, gold, resources, which you can set in the game is important, and skills, active, perhaps the skills are also important. For example, you want not that a cheater activates all the skills like he wants, so you want prevent this, perhaps also on the server. And something like that. So all what you not want that a cheater can change during gameplay, run and change it on the server. And that's why my code here is actually a very bad example. Never do something like that. But that was anyway more a demonstration. When I created them all, it was just very fast creation, not optimized creation. So, but this is very important. Keep this in mind if you are going to make a game. Now you still can change it very easy because it's not a little bit work, yes, but it's not so difficult because you are just, like I showed you, you are just copying the code here and make a reference and change all those references here. And that's it, more or less. A little bit work, but easy to change. I'm probably not going to do this because this is just a demonstration. Perhaps I make it too, but this on my side is just yeah, we show just here all the basics. And yes, this is also a basic to understand that you should properly organize your code and not doing like me, throwing in and without thinking. And yeah, I hope you get the message. What I want to point out is you will have a lot of work if you not work, let's say, a little bit organized properly, right? So like me, so that later that you can know exactly how to call, where to call, because these call steps are sometimes the bigger problem than you imagined at start. So alright, I think you get the idea, and in the next video I think I will here, perhaps I will clean this also up and put them on the server, and then I will implement this character switch. I show you this code here below. There are two alternatives, one with teleport, one with spawn. Both are not as good. Let's see later what is better, what is worse, but yeah. But I think that's it for this video. And yeah, if you have any questions or any complaints like all time, write it in the comments, and see you in the next. Bye.